In Star Trek's original series, the Federation's greatest adversary was the Klingon Empire, which was involved in a Cold War with the Federation throughout the late 23rd century. In the Next Generation, however, times have changed, and the Klingon Empire was a close ally of the Federation. But how could this have happened? What caused the shift in the Federation's relations with the Klingon Empire? In this video, we'll be telling the full story. Welcome to Trek Central, I'm your host, Captain Jack, and let's get into it. Like always, if you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media for daily updates on the ever-expanding Star Trek universe. Now, we're enjoying making these Star Trek videos on various topics, and we hope you're enjoying them. If you do want to support their development, and we need it now more than ever, please join our Patreon via the link below. You'll get exclusive access to videos and events, as well as more Galaxy class rewards. Now, as always, please let us know your thoughts in the comments section below, because if you're talking about Star Trek, then we want to hear about it. Oh, and if you were a Klingon, what would your Klingon name be? Okay, get commenting. Engage. Have you ever wanted to take command of a USS Voyager? Well, now you can. Thanks to Daedalus and GameExcite for sponsoring this video. The new game of Star Trek Voyager, Across the Unknown, releases on February 18th on PC, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and Nintendo Switch 2. Check out the game by clicking on the link in our video description. Much like the series of Star Trek Voyager, you can ensure the Intrepid-class starship makes its legendary journey through the Delta Quadrant. Can you bring them home? In this story-driven survival strategy game, you are making the decisions. Prepare to take the helm and decide mission-critical details, all while exploring strange new worlds and going up against some tough enemies. But what makes Across the Unknown even more interesting is you don't have to follow Captain Janeway's decisions. Perhaps you thought she should have made a different decision. Well, now you can make that choice. What if Voyager embraced Borg technology? Be the diplomat, or let the ship's phasers do the talking. You are in command. Explore the Delta Quadrant, manage the Voyager's crew, as well as the ship itself. You'll need to configure the layout of the ship, as well as assign crew members to missions. Once again, the new game of Star Trek Voyager, Across the Unknown, released on February 18th on PC, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, and Nintendo Switch 2. Click the link in the video description to get the game. Thanks to Daedalus and GameExcite for sponsoring this video. We'll see you on the bridge. The Klingon Empire and humanity were at odds with one another pretty much from the beginning. Even before the United Federation of Planets founding, humanity's first contact with the Klingons in 2151 nearly ended in disaster, and several encounters between Klingons and the Earth starship Enterprise throughout the early 2150s ended poorly. Enterprise's commanding officer, Captain Jonathan Archer, was even declared an enemy of the state by the Klingon Empire for helping refugees escape Klingon space. And this was only the start of many decades of mutual distrust and dislike between the Klingons and humanity. Although the Klingons were on better terms with some of the Federation's other founding species, the animosity with humanity seems to have been extended to the Federation after its founding. From the late 22nd century to the early 23rd century, contact between the Federation and the Klingons became rare, but relations between the two powers nonetheless continued to sour. By the 2220s, any encounters with the Klingons were typically hostile, and the two powers would fight off and on for the better part of the next 70 years, especially as the Federation's steady expansion pushed its borders even closer to the Klingons. Federation-Klingon relations reached their worst point in the 2250s, with the outbreak of the Federation-Klingon War. This bloody conflict was ultimately resolved peacefully, but tensions remained between the two powers, sparking a 4-decade-long Cold War, marked by repeated border disputes and occasional skirmishes. Throughout this conflict, the Federation and the Klingon Empire repeatedly sought to acquire new territory, develop new military technology, and gain greater access to resources to gain an advantage over the other power, sometimes participating in proxy conflicts on unaligned planets to further their geopolitical aims. Occasionally, this Cold War erupted into brief periods of open conflict, as in 2267 and 2269, but for the most part, a reopening of the 2256 war was averted. Amidst this constant conflict, many participants developed a strong dislike for those on the other side. From the very beginning, humanity had struggled to understand Klingon culture, and the failures to understand the Klingons' warrior ways and appreciate how important honor and tradition were to the Klingons were responsible for the poor relations the two species had early on. After decades of conflict, many in the Federation, especially in Starfleet, had come to see the Klingons as bloodthirsty, resource-hungry warmongers who had built an empire on exploitation and violence. In turn, the Klingons saw the Federation and humanity, especially as weaklings, unworthy of the great geopolitical power they had amassed. In the mid-2280s, efforts to end the Cold War and improve relations between the two powers saw some success, though this was hindered by a brief conflict over the Genesis device. Peace efforts stalled until the early 2290s, however, as the Klingons were unwilling to agree to a lasting peace deal that didn't overwhelmingly favour them. But things changed in 2293 when the catastrophic explosion of Praxis, Kronos' moon, greatly weakened the Klingon Empire. Praxis had been the site of the Klingons' main energy mines, and its destruction threatened the homeworld of Kronos. The Klingons were forced to divert resources from their military in order to deal with the disaster, and the reigning Klingon Chancellor, Gorkon, soon realised this left the Empire in a bad position should war erupt with the Federation. In order to prevent the Empire from having to fight a war it couldn't afford, Gorkon reached out to the Federation and proposed a renewed series of peace talks. The Federation agreed, and the talks were scheduled to begin on Earth shortly thereafter. However, the peace conference had been postponed after Gorkon was assassinated. The talks were relocated to Khitomer, a Klingon colony, but they nearly collapsed before they could truly begin, after Starfleet Captain James T. Kirk was accused of Gorkon's murder. However, Kirk was ultimately able to clear his name and expose the real murderers, a conspiracy of high-ranking Starfleet officers and the Klingon military that wanted to prevent peace out of hatred for one another, goaded on by Romulan agents. After the conspiracy was exposed, the talks continued, eventually resulting in a landmark peace agreement between the two powers, the Khitomer Accords. The Accords extracted concessions for both sides, and they brought an end to hostilities between the Klingons and the Federation. The treaty did establish formal diplomatic relations between the two powers, and it also abolished the neutral zone between the two territories. The Khitomer Accords effectively marked the end of the Klingon Federation Cold War, but the two former rivals didn't become friends overnight. After all, many people on both sides maintained their distrust and dislike of the other, and the Klingons had only agreed to the talks in the first place for practical reasons, not because they really wanted better relations for their own sake. It would take decades of further diplomatic advances to improve relations further. The next major turning point came in 2344 with the Battle of Naranda III. In the decades since the Khitomer Accords, relations between the Klingons and the Romulan Star Empire had fallen apart. The two sides began disregarding the treaties they had signed in the 23rd century, and this led to the Romulans carrying out a sneak attack against a poorly defended Klingon colony on Naranda III. A Romulan strike force bombarded the colony from orbit, and the Klingons on Naranda III were forced to issue a distress call. The call was answered by the Starfleet vessel USS Enterprise C, commanded by Captain Rachel Garrett. The Ambassador class did its best to defend what was left of the colony, but it quickly became apparent that defeat was inevitable. The Enterprise was outnumbered and outgunned. Despite this, Garrett and her crew fought to the last man to defend Naranda III. The Enterprise was ultimately destroyed, but its loss ultimately brought the Federation and the Klingons closer together. The Klingons were greatly impressed by Garrett's honourable decision to fight in the face of certain death rather than retreat, and this show of honour made many Klingons rethink their preconceptions of Starfleet, humanity, and the Federation in general. The Klingons came to believe that the Federation had honour after all, in its own way, and in turn, many in the Federation had suddenly come to respect the Klingons more as well. The Battle of Naranda III also gave the Federation and the Klingons a common adversary, the Romulan Star Empire. The Romulans detested the Federation from the beginning, as the Federation was founded as a result of the Earth-Romulan War, and the Federation saw the Romulan Empire as one of its biggest threats. The Klingons, meanwhile, were disgusted by the dishonourable tactics the Romulans had displayed at Naranda III, and they came to see them as untrustworthy cowards. These two factors rapidly improved relations between the Federation and the Klingons, and in the ensuing years, the two powers established a formal alliance with one another. This Federation-Klingon alliance finally ended the last hints of conflict between the two powers, uniting them against whatever enemies they might face, especially the Romulans. This alliance held strong for decades, and the Federation and Klingon Empire soon became pretty close, working together in the face of various threats and allowing for unrestricted travel between their respective territories. The Romulans, of course, repeatedly tried to sabotage the alliance and restart hostilities between the Federation and the Klingons, but those efforts repeatedly failed. In the 2370s, the Federation-Klingon alliance was tested by the conflict with the Dominion. During the lead up to the conflict known as the Dominion War, the Dominion's founders were able to provoke conflict between the Federation and the Klingons by driving the Klingons to invade the Cardassian Union, which the Federation condemned. Relations rapidly deteriorated, and the Khitomer alliance was suspended, as the Klingons attacked the Federation starbase, Deep Space Nine, and even started a brief border war with the Federation. However, after the Dominion allied with the Cardassians and began establishing a foothold in the Alpha Quadrant, and after the Dominion's manipulation of the Klingon politics was exposed, the two sides would hastily repair relations. Though some tensions remained, both sides recognized the Dominion was the immediate threat, and they reformed the Khitomer alliance just in time for the start of the Dominion War. During the Dominion War, any trace of Dominion-inflicted animosity was wiped away. The Federation and Klingon Empire fought side by side in a desperate battle for survival against the invaders, working together to defend each other's territory and conduct joint offensives against Dominion strongholds. While other allies joined the fight later in the war, the two stood alone during the darkest chapters of the conflict, and they both recognized that neither of them would have survived if they hadn't been working together. The Dominion War ultimately ensured the Khitomer alliance would stand the test of time, in some form or another, as it did prove to both sides that the other was worthy of respect. The Dominion War proved to the Klingons that the Federation was every bit as tenacious, courageous, and honourable as they were in wartime, while the Klingons proved themselves to be dependable and loyal to many in Starfleet. By the war's end, the Federation and Klingons were closer allies than ever before. So, that's a look at the history of rapprochement between the Klingons and the Federation. Like always, if you want to keep up to date on the latest Star Trek news, lore, and more, then make sure to hit that subscribe button to never miss a video from the team here at Trek Central. You can also follow us on social media or join our community Discord server. A big thank you to everyone who has supported us on Patreon. Your support allows us to continue making these Galaxy class videos. For now, I've been Captain Jack, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Live long and prosper, my friends. Goodbye.